Hello there everyone, welcome back to a brand new Doctor Who theory video. Today I'm once again gonna talk about the future of Doctor Who and obviously the cancellation of this show. So obviously last couple of days and last couple of weeks have been a huge mess for us Doctor Who fans because we got the official news that Doctor Who is going to be tendering away for the coming years at the BBC. How long, we have no idea. How long it will be, how many years it will take, but obviously Russell T Davies has clarified his statement, or I suppose he talked about it on a radio program. It's like a radio program called Gadio, I'm not quite sure, but anyhow, Russell T Davies was a guest on there, and this is what he had to say.
Go ahead and call it cancelled if you want. You're wrong. You're literally wrong.
As the show is not cancelled.
I know, it's extraordinary to see newspapers who should know better seeing the show has been cancelled. It's the opposite. It's been put out to tender. Yes. And I understand that's an industry phrase. And people might not understand what a show being put out to tender means. Equally, at the same time, those people are complaining on devices which have a search engine. Go and look it up. Being put out to tender means, and this will happen to every BBC show, it's happened to Casualty, it's happened to The Weather. The weather was put out to tender. You know, the weather now is not made by the Met Office.
I thought it had gone back.
Oh, has it gone back?
Oh, we're going really into the nitty-gritty of the BBC now.
Well, what it means is the programme is pitched to be made by an independent company.
Yes.
As opposed to the BBC. Independent companies include BBC Studios, by the way, which is separate to BBC Public Service. So they're in the running, I imagine. I don't know. I'm not part of this process because it's a very legal process. But it's happened to Casualty. Casualty has been sitting there for years as a BBC show. It was put out to tender last year. Now it's good. That's going to be made independently by BBC Studios. So the same thing is happening here with Doctor Who. And I think, I'm not in charge of this process, that means many years ahead, no one's going to put out to tender, no one's going to apply for a tender for 1 year. It's not worth it.
Yeah, you've got to lock in.
You've got to lock in just to make it financially worthwhile. So I think this guarantees years of the programme. But no.
So yes, he clarifies that obviously Doctor Who is going to tender away, and obviously it also happened with obviously also another TV show, which is very interesting. Obviously this interview on Gadio with Russell T Davies and the tender of Doctor Who, it's very interesting because some fans are actually kind of angry at him. I am quite well aware why, but I just don't see it. Like, okay, Russell T Davies brought back David Tennant, which was great, and obviously made 2 more seasons, which was great. But obviously now that Doctor Who is cancelled, everyone is blaming him, but we don't need to do that. I mean, it's cool and all that you give him some death threats or whatever, but just think about it, alright? Just think about it, because obviously, has Doctor Who been cancelled? No, it has not. Competitive TV tender process for beloved show, obviously, is something interesting, and let me explain. Obviously, to tender a TV show, I looked it up because that's what Russell T Davies said. You should look it up and obviously Google it. So to put a TV show out to tender or a competitive tender means that a broadcasting network opens up for a formal bidding process, inviting outside independent productions companies to compete for the contract to produce that specific television show. This process is most common in public broadcasting such as the BBC in the United Kingdom and is actively shaping the future of major television franchises. So obviously how the tender process works. The broadcaster keeps the rights. The broadcasting network retains full ownership, which is the BBC, or I suppose BBC Studios or whatever, of the intellectual property, the IP, characters, brand and global licensing rights as well. So yeah, we will still be getting Doctor Who merch and merchandising, which, great, right? They are not selling the show itself. The invitation to tender, ITT, the broadcaster issues an ITT document detailing the precise conditions, requirements and scoring criteria and future goals for the show. Various production studios submit formal pitches. They must outline the creative vision, track record, production speed and production money, value for money, and broadcast societal impacts like job creation and how many people can actually work there as well. The network reviews the bids against strict guidelines and awards a contract to the studio that offers the best balance of cost and creative quality. The existing production company can often rebid, but they must compete fairly against newcomers as well. That's interesting. Obviously, this is more like marketing and / economics, which is kind of interesting. It's just something interesting. It's marketing, like, right? Obviously, the real world example of Doctor Who. The BBC announced that Doctor Who was being put out to competitive tender. This choice has had immediate real world effects on the franchise. The show is not cancelled. The BBC remains entirely committed to the long term future of the series, which they already have said obviously a few months ago as well. I think the creative executive producer or whatever on the BBC said it's not cancelled, but obviously we're working on it. So there we go. Current showrunner Russell Davies and the production company Bad Wolf, which he obviously works with, are exiting this series, clearing the way for a brand new studio to take over the production. Because setting up an international tender takes considerable time, the BBC cancelled the upcoming Christmas special to fully invest in restructuring the show's long-term future. Other well-known BBC programs such as Casualty, DIY, SOS and Fake or Fortune have successfully gone through this exact same tendering framework as well. And Casualty is one of those examples that Russell Davies said in this interview on Gadio, which is really interesting. I have not heard about Casualty. I looked it up and I was like, okay, that's like a medical series, right? And it's been running for a very long time. So yeah, okay, I get it. Fair enough. Good. That's nice. Obviously, one of my other favorite TV shows, Red Dwarf, is also kind of like an example on it. I'm not quite sure. It's not the same, but obviously, why does it take so long for new seasons for Red Dwarf, right? There are multiple extended gaps between seasons of Red Dwarf. And obviously, right now, we're stuck in this limbo whether or not Doctor Who will, come back in a few years. Obviously, just like Red Dwarf was also gone for a few years, but then they brought it back, but with a different, I suppose, vibe to it, which was really interesting. Obviously, it was also caused by years of legal disputes, a shift in television networks, and the availability of the core cast as well. So that's really interesting. But obviously, Red Dwarf ended in 1999, right? The limbo years, the 10-year gap, which obviously we also had in Doctor Who with obviously the 1989 last survival episode, and obviously the series coming back 16 years later. So alright, both series have done it, alright, and finding a new home on Dave, which Red Dwarf is currently on, I suppose. Red Dwarf hasn't made a brand new special since 2020. It's been 6 years, and I'm not quite sure if they're going to make more, but I'm not quite sure. The cast is also getting older. But I want to give this example also with you guys because I think it's another one of those interesting cases to talk about, right? Obviously, there are other production companies that could take over Doctor Who and the science fiction show, and I looked it up, and BBC issued a competitive tender, like I said, a process to outsource all future productions of Doctor Who. Several top-tier UK production companies have proven track records in high-concept science fiction and drama, making them prime candidates to bid for the contract. So these are a couple of examples that I found on the internet. The sci-fi pedigree, I'm not quite sure, produced the hit sci-fi drama Humans on Channel 4 and AMC, the time travel cop series Life on Mars and Ashes to Ashes, and a dystopian thriller The Lazarus Project as well. And obviously, speaking of AMC also now has the rights for Doctor Who streaming, which obviously is a new Doctor Who, so from 2005 to 2022. So maybe AMC Plus will also be able to, give some budget to the BBC to make Doctor Who as well. But I'm not quite sure how that works. Obviously, why Kudos could work, right? Obviously, with their series like Humans and Ashes to Ashes. I have not seen these, but I think Live on Mars was also with the same actor who played the Master. That's really interesting. Kudos is exceptional at grounding massive sci-fi concepts and relatable human drama. They have deep structural ties to the BBC and possess the sheer scale needed to mount a massive multi-million-pound production like Doctor Who. The next one is Sister, founded by former Kudos executive. Sister co-produced the critical acclaimed high-budget sci-fi series The Power and the global phenomenon Chernobyl, which is really interesting and really well made as well. Sister is renowned for producing cinematic prestige television with uncompromising quality. If the BBC wants to move Doctor Who into a dark, visual, stunning and highly ambitious prestige era, Sister has the international leverage to make it happen as well. So there we go. That is really interesting. Obviously 2 examples, but I have some more. So alright, let's talk about those as well. We have Kudos and Wild Mercury, right? Wild Mercury, part of the Banjai group, produced the mind-bending sci-fi series The Rig and the dystopian sci-fi drama The Feed. They have proven they can build massive VFX-heavy sci-fi worlds entirely within the UK production ecosystem. The next one is Heartswood Films. Obviously produced Stephen Moffat's Sherlock and sci-fi thriller The Devil's Hour. Heartswood Film is also, I think, with Stephen Moffat's wife, who also works there. I'm not quite sure, but I think so. Could be wrong though, but I have a slight feeling that they actually are somehow related to Doctor Who, because Stephen Moffat obviously wrote for Doctor Who, and it could be really interesting. But then again, you have the problem, Stephen Moffat being attached to Doctor Who. What will that, what will come of that, right? But obviously these have an incredible tight historical relationship with the BBC and Doctor Who alumni network. If the BBC wants a safe, trusted pair of hands that understands how to make a clever, fast-paced British genre show, Heartswood is a natural frontrunner as well. Warp Films is up next, produced the bleak, gripping sci-fi series The Third Day and the sci-fi thriller movie Attack the Block. Warp is famous for its edgy, fiercely original, independent voice. If the BBC wants to complete creative regeneration, to step entirely away from nostalgia and inject raw, modern British counterculture back into the show, Warp would be ultimate wildcard choice as well. The next one is also BBC Studios Productions, right? In-house. Co-produced Doctor Who for years alongside Bad Wolf as well. While the contract is out to an open, competitive tender, BBC Studios remains the absolute frontrunner to win the bid. They already own the production infrastructure in Wales, hold the financial incentive to keep the IP close, and can simply pitch a brand new internal creative division to satisfy the BBC's charter requirements. So there you go. Alright, that's really interesting. But up next, I have actually the writer and I think the editor for the Doctor Who magazine, which obviously is a magazine that people can collect. And he talked about BBC confirms future of Doctor Who in the Christmas special, alright? He talks about, obviously the special has seemed pretty doubtful for quite a while. From everything he heard, let's see though, it's not over till it's over. On a more positive note, I'm absolutely certain that the show does have a future, even it will take several years to get there as well. So why can't people be nice to one another just for change? I mean, I'm an alien and you don't want to drag me into a swamp, do you? So that's another thing that I saw. Anyhow, that's really interesting. So he also said, yes, everyone I spoke to a year ago found it a rather odd decision, especially as I'd gathered via a friend who knows her publicist that she had no intention of doing anymore, which is obviously referring back to Billiepiper, right, being the 16th Doctor or whatever. But I suppose that could have potentially been worked out further, obviously down the track. I always thought it seemed pretty unlikely as well. So, yeah, there we go. Billiepiper was just here for some cameos, he says. Tom Spilsbury, right? So this is obviously a guy who writes for the Doctor Who magazine as well. So obviously who also says, you were absolutely correct, and even if you were only guessing about these things, so were the people who told you that, these things might be wrong. Billy only offered or only ever agreed to come in and do a cameo appearance, and the more I think about it, the more I've realized that her "Oh Hello" was a deliberate bookend to buy, which was the first word of New Doctor Who in 2005. It was essentially a gag to end it on, which would have provided a bit of a neat bookend, right? So there you go. Alright, that's really interesting. The update, obviously the update of Doctor Who's future is really sad, I suppose, but do people have to be mad to make more Doctor Who? The BBC recently completed the tender process for long-running medical drama series Casualty, during which BBC Studios retained the contract. Doctor Who is the highest profile series yet to undergo the process, but the prospect is failing to inspire early enthusiasm. Deadline contacted 4 respected UK drama producers to test their appetite for making Doctor Who. All had serious reservations about becoming a gun for hire. The producers said they worried about not owning the rights to the series that would likely become a significant drain on resources and creative energy. They also harbored concerns about funding for Doctor Who after this Disney deal, where some expressed more fundamental fears about whether the Time Lord remains relevant to young audiences. One top producer claimed that you would have to be mad to take on the show. It's a bit of a, I suppose, maybe it's a wound, right? Maybe Doctor Who is kind of like, how you call it? Like there's this Japanese pottery art, right? It's called kintsugi, I think, yeah. It's golden joinery, right? Is Doctor Who kind of like this? Are people trying to obviously repair a broken pot, right? It's obviously a Japanese art, right? Where obviously were primarily a centuries-old Japanese method for repairing broken pottery. This philosophy, which beautifully highlights flaws within obviously powered gold rather than hiding them, has inspired famous pop culture moments, also with Kylo Ren's mask. Something is broken, just like Doctor Who. Do they need to fix it and obviously patch it up together with, neat bows and neat, golds? No, I think just break the pot and make a new one. I think that's essentially what I'm trying to say here. It's kind of like a very weird analogy, but I think you would actually understand it, right? Just make a new pot, I suppose. Because Doctor Who really needs some new kind of reformance, right? The Doctor needs to have some new adventures, and obviously if Russell T Davies and Stephen Moffat are involved, he can't really do that. Obviously, new production companies need to make new stories and prove us right and some haters wrong, because obviously the BBC dropped a TARDIS bombshell on Wednesday, and gone is the Christmas special, which obviously had been greenlit only 8 months previously. But two insiders said it was a mutual parting of the waves, right? So the outcome was obvious to anyone close to the show. Davies had no script whatsoever. But that's the thing. He also teased a couple of months ago about having a script, and so did Mary Gold. So there's something very wrong here. I'm not quite sure what. But the BBC announced that it will be embarking on a competitive tender for season 16 or season 1. Just don't call it season 16, because that won't work. Because in my opinion, right now, ncutigatwa's seasons are obviously season 14 and 15. And season 16 will never happen, because Doctor Who, as we know it, the new Who Doctor, right, from 2005 to 2025, has ended. There needs to be a brand new reboot, otherwise it won't work. The idea of farming out one of your iconic brands to a third-party producer may seem anathema to some, but under the terms of the BBC's operating agreement, known as its Royal Charter, the corporation has a duty to put in-house shows out to market, right? So there we go. So yeah, a person close to Doctor Who in recent years said the show will survive. If you look at the longevity of Marvel stars and Star Trek, these are valuable commodities of a generation. The BBC is lucky to have one of those, and this should be no more than a bump in the road if they approach it properly. The Doctor may be dead for now, but BBC will be hoping in its long life, obviously coming up. So others are more upbeat. One person said Doctor Who is both an intriguing prospect and a potential resource sink. Doctor Who is a global brand that could burnish the resume of a producer and potentially open other doors as well. And whatever happens, BBC Studios will remain in the saddle, handling distribution, licensing, consumer products, digital and immersive experiences as well. Even if there is a frenzy for the contract, Doctor Who is expected to be off air for years. The closest we'll get is maybe 2028 for a new season, but I'm not quite sure about that. The BBC has not given any timeline for when it will take Doctor Who to market, and when it does, it's a process that can take up to 6 months if the casualty tender is anything to go by. It's not clear if Bad Wolf can be pursued to bait for Doctor Who, but a source said it was unlikely that the producer's partner Sony Pictures Television would sanction the company spending more time on a show they don't own or have share of. Bad Wolf's deal in 2021 to make the BBC Studio series highly unusual, but it was used as a mechanism to restore Davies as a showrunner after he worked with bosses Jane Tranter and Julie Garner on the 2005 relaunch with Christopher Eccleston. Bad Wolf has declined to comment beyond a statement posted on Instagram, in which it said it had been an honor to work on Doctor Who as well. So it's hard to see another major US studio replacing Disney, so the budget would be hard to get above 3 million per episode without significant GoPro or insane investments from the distribution arms, which BBC is, which they will struggle to recoup on sales as well. So that is really interesting. Alright, I talked about a lot of things here, but yeah, Doctor Who will come back eventually. There's also this interview with Jane Tranter talking about it, which she was kind of offended that people said that Doctor Who is cancelled. Yeah, sure, whatever.
Whovians would not forgive me for sitting here with you now and not asking. Well, they'll have been alarmed to read what the writer Robert Shearman said earlier this week. He described Doctor Who as dead as we've ever known it.
As dead as we've ever known it. That's really rude, actually, and really untrue. I think maybe he didn't see the final episode of the last season with the great big tease that Russell T Davies laid out there with the return of Rose Tyler.
I think the only person right now is that the one person that is really happy that Doctor Who is gone with Doctor Who is Christopher Eccleston, because his dream was to say, obviously, sack Russell T Davies, sack Jane Trant or whatever. He said that in an interview or in a Comic-Con, whatever.
You'd all love to see Christopher come back as a Doctor, right? See? Now, what would have to happen for that to become a reality?
Sack Russell T Davies, sack Jane Tranter, sack Phil Collinson, sack Julie Gardner, and I'll come back. So can you arrange that?
So it's kind of funny that a lot of people are just taking that joke and taking it to the extreme. Maybe Christopher Eccleston was the boss, guys. Maybe he was the big villain of the entire ncutigatwa era. No, I just don't think so. But Christopher Eccleston might be open to return. I'm not quite sure. It will probably not happen. So does Matt Smith. Matt Smith also wants to return to Doctor Who somehow, some way. But right now he's a big Hollywood actor, and obviously he's starring in House of the Dragon as well, and obviously in the upcoming Star Wars film, Star Wars, obviously Starfighter as well. So I don't think he will return to Doctor Who one slightest bit. But alright, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hopefully you enjoyed this rather longer episode and video. But yeah, it is my duty to keep Doctor Who alive, as well as obviously for the other Doctor Who YouTube creators out there on YouTube and obviously other platforms. Like obviously Josh Snares makes some huge awesome Doctor Who content. Same goes for obviously Joe for the Confused Adipose YouTube channel, which is I absolutely adore that guy. He's awesome and he makes some awesome creative short movies. So there we go. I also really like watching Theories and Nerd Den and Who Culture as well. Obviously there are other ones like Doctor Who Fan 91. He doesn't really make a lot of videos, but when he drops a video, they are pure cinema as well. And obviously Crispy Pro as well. I just love these Doctor Who creators and I wish them the best of luck. There are others out there that I forgot to mention obviously as well. But I think it's important for us younger viewers. I think like there are pretty young viewers that obviously these are some pretty young creators out there, like obviously the Confused Adipose and obviously Theories I watch, and like they're kind of like the same age as me. I think they're around 20, 25 maybe, and I'm quite young. I'm quite younger than that. Obviously I'm a few years younger than them. I'm 19 currently, but yeah, it's still fun to see all these young creators actually talk about Doctor Who, and yeah, they grew up with it. And same for me, right? I grew up with Doctor Who as well, and I just really want to see how this will work out in the future. So alright, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will check you later. Goodbye everyone, or should I say, Doctor, I let you go. Allons-y.
Direct you where to go. So make the best of this task and don't ask why.
Watch Doctor Who and support number 11. This is it. This is the end, and you've been amazing. I feel quite emotional. Thank you very much.
Being able to play this gift of a role will and has changed my life for the better, and it's brilliant. Like all I ever wanted to be when I was a little kid was I wanted to play pretend.
The end is right. I hope you had the time of your life.